Freelancing is a scary gig. For those who make it full-time understand the risks and the anxieties that you have to face every single day. Will you get a next job? And how do you land your next gig? And for those who only keep it part-time, figuring out how you can make this your full-time gig. A huge part of the evolution of a freelancer is to understand the business aspect of this industry. So in this episode, we are going to talk to the co-host Anthony Voltsinis about his freelance career and how his choices and his experiences have shaped his evolution as a freelancer. So welcome to Applebox Podcast. I'm your host, Danny Lau, and I'm here alongside the man of the hour, Anthony Voltsinis. Let's get into it. In this episode, we are going to dive into the mind of Anthony Voltsinis.
There's not much.
I think there's a lot.
A short episode.
I think there's a lot, in fact. Just, it's not always relevant, but, whose mind is. Yeah. But this time in this episode, we're going to talk about the evolution of a freelancer. So somebody who enters in this industry as a freelancer, we all know that it can be quite a volumetric game. Let's put it that way, where you are constantly working pretty much, especially at the beginning, you're working for free, you're working as much as you can. And we all know that eventually has to stop for you to evolve. So we're going to dive into Anthony because Anthony is somebody who pretty much majority of his career, almost up until today, has played that volume game and has played that game of how can I service everybody. Yeah. So let's start with just how you have operated in the past, 6-7 years that you've been in this industry?
Yeah, I would say 6 years. So 18 years old, was at Ryerson Film School for part-time.
Yeah.
Got eventually hired, worked at a company for 4 years. It's a long story. And then after 4 years, went full-time freelance for 2 years, up until this point.
And how often were you working? Like how often...
I mean, every day. It's like, when were you not working is a better question, which was like twice.
Yeah. So you're not shooting, you're editing.
Yeah, exactly. So at the company, it was like nonstop. It was, I was thrown right into it at 18. Like, didn't have hours or anything like that, but like had goals, deadlines, tasks to complete. And it was a volume game at that point because it was just consistent work. And that makes sense. Get hired to do something, to make the best bang for their buck as an employer is to give you a lot of work to do.
Right. Almost like the corporate ladder mindset.
Yeah. The return is higher on their end because they were getting more clients.
Yes.
They're charging for those, and then you're getting paid a salary or whatever it was. Right.
Yeah.
So that was what kind of conditioned me to be like nonstop working. I already had that mindset, but I think it was leveraged.
Well, let's pause right there because I want to know why you enter into that space in the first place.
So I was freelancing when I was at Ryerson.
Yeah.
Because I was in night school, so I had time. So I was trying to freelance, trying to get into the game, doing jobs for like $50, for like a full day worth of work. And I'm just
was it for portfolio sake?
Not even like in retrospect, it was just to do it. Someone wanted me to do something, and I was just literally on Craigslist. Yeah. And Facebook groups looking for jobs. So, and I didn't have a crazy kit at the time. I had nothing actually. Like I had a small, I got a DSLR and a couple lenses,
right, and
some like really janky tripods.
Yeah.
So I was doing really like low end freelance jobs as I was, in school. And what transitioned me to get a job was freelancing. I basically was the guy who eventually hired me, brought me out to a job for free, shot a video for him at this event. He was super impressed. The turnaround time was pretty quick as well, which was I got known for a hot minute.
Yeah.
And after a few more jobs, he was like, "Hey, I want to eventually hire you full time." Yeah. So it wasn't crazy pay. It was like basically close to nothing in the beginning. Like I didn't deserve much either. Yeah. But 4 years allowed me to develop or to refine my work ethic and obviously build a kit.
Was the stability that tempted you to take that?
Not really. I don't care. Like I had stability. I was living at home. I didn't even think about it. Like I didn't really.
It was just more so that you had the opportunity to work.
It was opportunity. Yeah. It was like someone wants me to do something. I'm going to do it. Like cool.
And I get to use my camera as often as I want, type of thing. And
yeah. Like the funny thing with me is like I literally was not intentional in any capacity with like my trajectory.
You just wanted. just work in a way?
Yeah, like I knew I wanted to freelance.
Yeah.
And I knew I wanted to, I wanted to be a filmmaker at one point.
Yeah.
And I realized I thought I was a big film ride guy. And I'm like, freelancing makes sense. Someone wants to hire me to make a video for them. Like, cool. Like, I'm down. And yeah, it wasn't for anything besides someone wants me to do it, so I'm down. But that kind of naive, almost like go with the flow mindset was helpful, but also eventually, in retrospect, problematic.
Yeah.
Because it's not intentional. It's not goal oriented. It's not like, I'm not focused on what I want necessarily. I'm just kind of taking things as they come. Luckily, a lot of things came, but I think it did eventually steer me down a different path.
So the spoiler alert, essentially what's happened in Anthony's career, and we're going to continue this, but I just want people to know where we're trying to head to here. The evolution of a freelancer is Anthony working from volume work to doing work for pretty much nothing, filling up his schedule, to now being more intentional with his work.
Yes.
And now starting his own business in Faction Media together with me, and actually making work that essentially is more meaningful, but also more effective in the market as well. And also actually something you can be proud of, right? So, the evolution to go from somebody who just did it almost robotically, in a sense, like you just kind of did it just to do it, to now being intentional with your work. So that's the evolution that we're going to touch on today. So you got this job, you moved on from it a little bit, like you left it because of,
he recognized I was burnt out, and I would never admit that, but I was working every single day, no days off.
Yeah.
He would have to tell me to take days off, and I told him I can't. Like, the workload does not allow me to take days off. And it reached a point where it was just too much. It was not to get into it, really broke a lot of boundaries, I would say.
Yeah.
And I was naive. I didn't know. Like, I was just, it was my first real full-time job, so I didn't really have an expectation. But
yeah,
it
no
got out of hand.
experience really either dealing with this. So,
and then, then eventually that led to me having a conversation with him to go freelance, not to be on a monthly payment structure, like payment plan.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't technically a salary. I wasn't an employee. So that was a difficult transition. I was very scared of that. And it probably wasn't the most ideal for him either, but it had to happen, and it did. And then luckily I had some really close colleagues who were able to feed me some work.
Yeah.
Arthur, who's one of our close friends, cinematographer, was really instrumental in that, and like encouraging me. Same with a few clients I had were very encouraging. So that was what propelled me to be full-time freelance, work for myself, and I did that for a few years. It was really successful. Obviously, I got really busy. I was happy with that, but I realized there's a few problems. Obviously, I was too busy, and that's like a result of a few underlying issues. One is rates do not reflect value, meaning if you're charging too little, you're gonna get overbooked because people see, oh wow, this guy's willing to do it for this much. Like, you're gonna be popular. Yeah. And that also led to like literally no life, basically. Like, no social life, no time with my friends was very like marginal, and everyone was like, oh, you're gonna burn out, you're gonna burn out, you're gonna burn out. Like, I always heard that from people because people would see my work ethic on Instagram and all this stuff. And I never understood it. I'm like, burnout doesn't exist. Like, you just, whatever. Like, burnout is just like an acceptance of like, I'm tired. I didn't really accept that until recently, where it's just like the effects have compounded and now have revealed themselves, and now it's like it's hitting. It's like, holy shit!
It literally just hits you.
Yeah,
it literally, like, out of nowhere, it'll just hit you.
The problem I realized is that it was a slow process. It's not like you don't like hit a point. Burn. Yeah, it's a slow burn. You don't hit a point where it's like, oh fuck, like instantaneously, like I am just completely upset and like, this is all unhealthy. It's more like I didn't see the fire brewing. It was like the forest fire, like in the distance. I didn't see it. That was the problem. It was like it reached a point, because I was very happy. Like, I'm overall grateful because I worked my ass off to get to the connections I needed to get.
There's value
to work with the agencies I get to work with, like do some cool projects. Obviously, make enough money to accumulate the kit that I now have. Yeah, can't complain in that way. The detriment was more on the mental side of things that I didn't think would happen. I didn't know it was possible that I would be like reach a point where I'm actually like not very passionate anymore, and I've kind of lost my drive to expand creatively. And it was just kind of like I was in this robotic assembly line like there's too much work to do to sit and think about how I feel. Like it just has to get done.
Yeah.
But then as things started progressing and the telltale signs and like the writing that was on the wall was, where I realized I was overdoing it was when it started to affect other people and other things and other clients. And it was like, I could abuse myself, but once it starts affecting other people, family, friends, relationships, other clients, which was huge, I'm starting to realize like this is a problem. And the self-awareness came in. I'm like, oh shit, like I'm actually not very satisfied. Despite the money and despite everything, like I'm working all the time, like it didn't matter to me anymore.
Right. But I mean, that's something that like, it sucks when you hit that realization, because that happened to me as well. And then when you look back in hindsight, you're like, how was I affecting them the whole time? And I think that guilt accumulates as well. It's not just a realization, but the guilt builds up and you're like,
I don't know if I have that much guilt about it.
But I mean, maybe you haven't reached that
sense.
stage yet, right? Perhaps, I mean, I don't know. It depends on what it is. Everyone's story is different, right? Like I took a terrible loss in my burnout stage. So I felt a lot of guilt, right?
Yeah.
In mine, but
I still, maybe it's ego and pride. I still don't want to say I'm burnt out, but I probably am. And I think I still, we're obviously building this company.
Yeah.
And that is the shift in mindset that needs to happen, because I was starting to realize I'm building everyone else's business. Like, of course, I am getting paid for the work I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm doing it for free. But the more I started to understand how the world works and how money works and how things operate at a certain level, freelancing, and there's two ways to go about it. Continue what I'm doing, which is like really volume, mid to lower tier rates, I would say, maybe mid tier, I guess. But there's you're either that or you're at the higher echelon of freelance, where you're actually an independent photographer, videographer, whatever, cinematographer, but you're charging realistic rates that are fairly higher yield projects, but your value is reflective of that. Yeah. Like you're like in the upper 10% of people in your industry.
Yeah.
Either that or you're at the bottom.
Right. There's that big black hole in the middle.
Doesn't exist. There's no middle ground.
There is no middle ground.
Because everyone can have a camera.
Yeah.
There's so many of us.
Yeah.
Either you're creating it's not bad work at all. It's a certain type of work.
Right.
It is volume. It's obviously a lot of social media, like content creation.
Right.
Run and gun videography, photography.
Yeah.
But to really get to the next level, which is the only other level, which is like the best of the best, you gotta refine your skill set. You gotta change how you operate. You gotta learn new things. You can't take every job, because not every job is gonna reflect that quality of work. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the stage that I'm at, where I can continue down this path, or I can forge a new path, which is what
the space you're talking about is that like no man's land area.
Yeah.
Of like, you got to make that hop from, just a general figure is not accurate, but like you can make that hop from $1,000 to $10,000.
Exactly.
Like gigs, like those are the rates that all of a sudden you charge for 1,000, 10,000. This is a big leap in terms of, perhaps not financially, it's still a big leap, but it's not like huge. Not, we're talking millions here, but we're regardless, like when you hit the 10-figure or the five-figure mark, right? So $10,000 mark and above, now you're looking at a league of different investment and different involvement of clients and everything, and pressure, and like, the work becomes different.
It's like also a mindset, because the kit that I've accumulated, the experience that I have, can probably charge close to those rates.
Yeah.
And my mindset, which has been conditioned, which is maybe some advice to freelancers who are just starting, is if you condition yourself to believe that you're worth a certain thing, and what people are telling you you're worth because they're willing to pay you that, let's say it's $400.
Yeah. You'll
get used to that, accepting that is what you're worth.
Yeah.
And that's where I was at, where I didn't know, like I wasn't researching how to charge. I was so naive that I didn't know what the value of my services were. Yeah. So I would just take whatever budget rate was given to me. But then I'm like looking outwardly outside of my box, and I'm like, people are making like $300K, $400K, $500K a year. And like, why am I different from them?
Doing the same work that you're doing.
Yeah. And it's like, why am I in this rat race as a choice?
Yeah.
And so it's like that perspective change is massive. And I think you have to research, you have to like understand value, you have to understand what you do, what other people in your industry do.
Yeah.
And like I had to break outside of that box to really see it.
Well, one thing that we've, depending on when you watch this, other guests have mentioned this as well, of like once you set yourself as the $500 guy, you will forever be the $500 guy in that client's eyes, including the network in which they keep you in, the web of like maybe they ask their friend to then be like, oh, well, use my guy. You are a $500 guy. They're not going to go to him and, hey, can you please give him a raise? Clients don't give you raises. And that's just a fact of freelance and something you learn.
It's like
the hard
1 in
way.
a million.
It's 1 in a million. Unless you threaten to quit and they really need you, like
or
that which
really
is a rare case.
Or they're fucking you really hard. And it's like they feel bad
then
for
they
you.
feel
but that's very rare.
But that's super. That's like I don't even think I've been through anything like that. But like they don't give you like the clients don't give you raises, and it's really simple. It's because clients are a business and they operate and invest like in terms of return of investment. If you give them this many videos, blah blah blah, their profit margins go down the moment they give you a raise, right? They've committed to you. They're very simple. Businesses are very simple. I want to pay you this much. This is how much I want to make, and that's the agreement.
Yeah, they want to optimize their margins, like
which is why you're going to get retainers offers almost all the time if they love you.
Yeah. Well, for me, I never got retainer offers. I got like partnership offers. Like, I'll give you like you run.
That's way better. That's actually way better.
Listen, I never took any of them, and But in hindsight, it's like okay, like there's people actually saw what I didn't even see in myself because people who have established companies are asking me to be a partner and have equity and a salary to run their half of their company, whether it was a video side of the company or whatever. I'm like, I was so hesitant to do that because of coming from an employment background. I was so like anti being tied down and like someone owning me.
Well, they essentially still do. If you have a smaller percentage, they own you. Exactly, you're still an employee.
Yeah. Either way, you're not building for yourself.
You're not building for yourself.
So you're in the matrix, which is fine. Like some people don't want to start a business. Some people don't have that drive.
Yeah, that's the life that some people want to live.
Yeah, and that's totally fine. And I don't even fault people who do what I do because it led me to my current stage. So I can't complain about it. I really can't. Like it was my choice. Everything was my choice. Completely responsible for it. Even the lack of knowledge and insight was my fault. Mm-hmm. And I can't complain because it brought me to where I am. Right.
Right.
So now I'm at a stage where I'm reevaluating a lot of things creatively and professionally and business wise. So we're starting this company. My role at the company at Faction is completely different.
Yeah. Well, I think it's mission based. It's the like what we say together privately internally is the mission of Faction. Your role is not a specific role; it's a mission, and the mission is for you to be proud of yourself. So whatever you got to do in the company to be proud of yourself, do that, and that in essence will then build the company because you know what you're doing. Like me and you have been doing this for years. We know what we're doing. We're experts in our field. So it's not so much the application of like what do we do. It's how do we do it, right?
Yeah, and to keep reminding myself why.
Exactly.
So yeah, like you said, my ultimate goal now, because I look back and I'm like, why am I not posting my work? I have so much goddamn work to post.
You have a lot.
And I'm probably gonna post it, to be honest, because why not?
Yeah.
And it came down to I'm not proud of myself for some reason. Mm-hmm. Maybe I am proud of the work in some capacity, but maybe I'm not because I know there's levels to the game too.
Yeah.
And I know what I'm capable of. I think that's the problem. Like I know what I'm capable of, but I'm not living up to that capability, that potential. And I got bogged down, so I didn't want to post. I'm like, I don't care. I don't want to post what I'm doing. I just want to get it done. But now I'm at a point where I want everything that I do, at least 90% of it, to be something I'm really fucking proud of. Something I want to show my parents, my friends, my anyone I know, to post about it. Not out of ego, but out of like I'm grateful. I'm happy.
The key to being proud of yourself is knowing that you did it partly for you. Obviously, there's always going to be elements of doing it for other people. You're getting hired. You're essentially a contractor.
Yeah, your
It
service.
makes sense. Like you got to do it for other people. It's a business.
Yeah.
But part of you has to want to do it. And if you want to actually do it, you'll be proud of it, right? You have people like Grips, ACs, PAs post behind the scenes of being proud of the productions they're in because they want to be part of it.
Exactly.
It's not their production. They have nothing to do with the visuals. They have nothing. They just play their role on the set, but they love being there. So they're just proud of being there. And I think that's the key is just like finding elements in things that make you want to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you don't have anything you don't want to do it, then the only piece of advice I have is to make sure you're financially compensated for it.
Yeah, there's again
very well, like
yeah,
fairly.
There's
pillars, there's balance.
Yeah, like
right?
there's aspects of accepting a job or a gig, or a client, project, whatever. Yeah, you have to kind of factor in because not every job is going to have the most ideal set of factors.
Never.
So it's like
it's never going to be 100%.
Yeah, like financially, creatively, whatever the pillars are.
Yeah,
it's not always going to check all those boxes, but it has to check more than half of the ones that you want.
Yeah,
ideally. Or like you said, you get paid handsomely for the job
exactly.
if none of those other boxes are checked.
Yeah,
that's fine. Like I think, I'm at a point where it's I'm keeping the context that I currently have, but we're building a business, like, and it's a different model.
Yeah,
it's larger scale productions. Yeah. It's allowing me to learn skills and different things that I wanted to grow into. On the back end, operationally, as a producer, even as a photographer, like even as a part of the video production team, like it's forcing me to evolve in those areas that I've always known I can evolve in.
Yeah.
And to flex those skills because I want to learn more. I stopped learning when I was bogged down in freelance because it's just all the time work. And there's no time to like sit and like learn a new skill and develop something because that takes fucking time. That takes energy. You're gonna have to fuck up, and you can't afford to fuck up when you're doing a job and you have a job the next day and the next day, and you can't like experiment because you have to literally service the job.
Well, I'd say like the constant work mentality in this industry is very much like, to me, it gets stuck. It's the same. You're bumping into the same wall, and that wall is not allowing you to grow. And you get to a level where, like, we look at athleisure, right? Yeah. Well, what was the biggest challenge of athleisure? It was the pressure of dealing with so many things at once. And I think if I never practiced and evolved myself as a freelancer, took time away from gigs, turned down gigs to learn, just sit down and just be a student instead of a worker.
Yeah.
If I didn't learn, there was a lot of decisions there that could have completely just made that production go upside down.
Yeah.
And I think, it's important to balance like work and being a worker and being a student.
Yes.
And I think you should always be a student, but at the end of the day, like, teaching yourself the valuable valuable lessons or valuable techniques that you need to perform in your job better, because it will get to the point when the higher end productions where you can't do it by yourself.
Yeah.
And that's something that we've realized, throughout the last 2-3 years, right? Like, you can't do it by yourself. And there's some things that, like, okay, if I'm going to hire, a G&E team, I got to understand what the hell they're doing. Yeah. And if I just used to doing everything by myself, I'm not going to understand the value of them.
Yeah. It comes down to what projects you want to work on, and how are you going to get to that level?
Yeah.
Like, you can't, if you're running around with a gimbal and an A7S III, nothing wrong with that. Certain jobs need that.
Right.
But are you going to be hired on a 6-figure commercial job? No, you're not.
Yeah.
And that's fine. It depends what you want. Like, and I'm at a point where I've exhausted, in my opinion, the freelance hybrid shooter videography photography game. I can do it. Doesn't excite me that much anymore because it's repeat. I'm not flexing any new skills, any new experiences. So that's where I'm at a stage where I have 3 main areas that I want to focus on in terms of knowledge and expertise. There's creatively, which is like my photography and obviously video production, learning as much as I can in those new areas to evolve as a photographer to become as elite as I can be,
right?
Or as elite as I want to be,
right?
So I can service those larger campaigns, or at least be able to know enough to manage someone to actually shoot the campaign,
right?
But that's creatively, artistically, business wise. I mean, the whole back end, making sure that we're financially in a good place, operations, efficiencies, software, like making sure that we have an efficient business.
Yeah.
That is as optimized as possible. Even building the website, like these are all skills that need to be learned, and it requires time to do that.
Yeah.
And then the other side of things is like the new things that I want to learn in general, which will help the business, like learning more about paid ads and like marketing and how the whole back end works with funnels. And if we're talking to agencies who are running larger campaigns and are hiring us as a production team, I think it definitely helps us to use the language that they use.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's all about return on investment, like you said. Why are they hiring us for this job? What is the how are they going to distribute this campaign? How are they going to market it? What is the whole point of it? Like, because as freelancers, and when I was working at a company, especially, we would all we would do is just create content, and no idea if it works.
Yeah.
No idea if it's like actually productive for the company or for the business that we're working with, the brand, the person. And it's like, why would we ever waste resources and time if it doesn't lead to anything that is beneficial? So that's why I'm at a point where I want to learn all of that stuff to better inform if what we're doing is actually valuable to the client, to the customer, to the agency, whatever.
Yeah, you've almost like kind of evolved from a freelancer who uses his work and work ethic to please the client to now going into a deeper, more matured level of a freelancer where you want to make sure the work you're doing not only provides the the return on investment that they're looking for, but it's actually something that is effective.
That's all that matters, really.
So exactly, because that's what they're really looking for. Now, if you can add in, a pretty ad, it kind of comes by default if you're going to have that level of investment, right? You need that, but if you're going to add that on, it's a bonus. But overall, you've matured in a sense of like, let me just work 12, 14 hours a day for you, or 20 hours a day for you, and now actually sit down and be like, okay, let's slow down, let's look at the whole picture. What are you looking for? And what do you want?
That's why it comes down, because most of my freelance life was working with other companies or agencies.
Yeah.
So I wasn't always, it wasn't like B2B. It wasn't like I was talking to the client directly and like really managing their expectations and figuring out with them what they need. And as a result, especially working at a company for 4 years, I never understood the back end. Yeah. I didn't understand, how do you quote for this project? How are you bidding on this? Like, what are the conversations like with the client to get them to a point to like actually sign the contract? I didn't know any of that, and I was never exposed to that. So now, starting the business, I know I have the core skill set to actually do all of that.
Yeah.
And we've seen that as well.
Yeah.
But that's a whole learning process as well, to really understand sales and understand client relations. And
so important.
And for me, it's hard for me to sell something if I don't believe in it. And for me to believe in our product, I mean, visually, from a production level, I think we can compete with anyone.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's also about, like you said, the return on investment.
Yeah.
If this video, for example, how is it being used? What is it for? If it just looks pretty and it serves what the client thinks they need, but it doesn't lead to like more sales for their product or more leads for them,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't really matter, because that's the whole point. Why are you creating a video? For like just have something nice?
Exactly. And I think that's where it's kind of like the tiebreaker will always not necessarily be the visuals, even though I think that has a very heavy burden on
I think it's equal.
On where it leads. It ends up being equal at the end of the day. But looking from this perspective specifically, the tiebreaker between two people who are very talented, like two production teams are very talented, it's just your sales skills. At the end of the day, that's the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
Who can convince the client, or not necessarily, maybe convince is not the right word, but who can pitch the client a product that will return the most investment back to them.
Yeah.
That's all it comes down to, right? And so like, I think visually, like you can, that's where it's a whole other aspect of the game.
Yeah.
That you got to evolve, because at the end of the day, we can touch on it a little bit. You talked about wanting to evolve as a creative, like evolving as a creative, you can't put yourself in mundane routines. Part of being creative is almost creating your own anxiety at the end of the day. Your own chaos, exactly. Like somebody like me who burnt out. I burnt out because I used to get these, I'll call them booklets, right, of how a TV show is going to run. And I would just skip to all the pages, and I know how to scan a 100-page booklet and go to only things that I need, because it became so routine. And if somebody else who's new saw this book, they'd be overwhelmed. They'd be like, what the hell does it all mean? That's how I felt the first time. But then when I see it, I'm just like, all right, yep. Or write this down. I know exactly what I'm doing. And it's almost like you don't challenge yourself creatively.
Yes.
And so like you don't evolve as a creative. Now where the visuals, I think, come into factor, because I know the sales is very, very important. We've touched on that. But where I think the visuals becomes equal to that is, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how well you can sell, but you cannot sell a Honda at the price of a Lamborghini.
Exactly.
No matter what. right? Like the rapping has to come with it, right? At the end of the day, someone might say, well, all I want is a car. Okay, then go get a Honda, right? But if somebody says, I want a car, but I want it to be premium, then you're looking at the Lambos, you're looking at the Ferraris, looking at the Bugattis, right? Like you're looking at the bigger stuff. So the rapping, no matter what people say, matters. And I think that's what visuals do. It's the same thing as even like the way you dress, right? You cannot come into a business meeting with holes in your shirt and stains and expect to sell. No matter how good of a salesman you are, right? You come in prim and proper, people get an idea of you. So I think there is that visual rap aspect of it and just your perception. And I think that's where the video comes into play.
Yep.
But I think once you got that covered, you got the rapping, now it's a matter of selling.
Yeah, you gotta build, like, for the business, it has to both have to be building forever.
Yes,
pretty
100%.
much. Because we can't get stagnant in either area. And I don't think we both want to anyway. Yeah. We, like, in our free time, we fucking keep looking at ads. We're like, look at this, look at this, look at this new piece of kit,
trying
look
to
at
get
this
inspired.
new software. Yeah. It's like, well, how can we get to that point? How can we do it better? Like, that's what excites me now.
Yeah.
Like it takes me a while to get excited about things.
Yeah.
So I think since we have that drive and that hunger to get to that level and to surpass it, it's always going to drive us in both sides of the business, right? Because we want the best productions possible. That's the bread and butter of what we do. But again, there's a million production companies. What makes us stand out, right? So it's a whole combination of factors that we have to keep constantly evolving and building, and that's where the knowledge and the time to learn comes into play. So that's why I can't take on every single job anymore, as much as it hurts people and people will have to feel bad that I'm not available anymore. And I feel bad about it. I'm a people pleaser in some capacity, or I was for a long time.
Yeah.
So I would feel guilty for taking time off and things like that. And now it's like, no, like, this is intentional, goal-oriented, focused time. Because when I am focused, when I have time for myself, pretty good things happen.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think when I'm occupying my time with everyone else's needs and wants and desires and how can I help them? And listen, that's part of the business. That's what business is. You're serving people. But now it's time to, like, okay, now give me 50% back to Anthony so I can focus on what I want to do, and I think that'll help the other 50% get to the next level too.
Well, I think at the end of the day, like you've always had trouble saying no. I think that's your biggest problem.
My biggest flaw is for sure.
Your biggest flaw that you've had up until this day. And I think there's a lesson to be learned in that for a lot of freelancers who are evolving. That the power of no is very powerful. Now, don't abuse it, right? But if you end up being like, for you were always that dependable, reliable guy. So when a client had you for like 4 years and you've always said yes, all of a sudden you say no, it's like no different from like if you date somebody who's done everything just for you and all of a sudden he or she says no, it's just like, whoa, kind of catches you off guard. What is this? You've changed, like you're different now.
Yeah.
It's an identity that if you build yourself in, you kind of dug your own grave in that sense. And it's your responsibility to go out and stand up for yourself and re-identify yourself as something else. Right.
Yeah.
And that's a difficult transition. It sounds easier said than done, but like you're doing it. I've done it, right? Like somebody who was just like you, who worked like a freaking maniac, to now being like, now people know not to approach me for certain things because it's like, I don't even want to waste this time.
Yeah.
Right. And you get that by saying no, by going through the guilt, by letting that guilt burn, as I usually call it.
Yeah.
It's
part of it. Like, either you learn to say no if you're a freelancer. Either you learn to say no. Once you get to a certain level, you got to be realistic with yourself. Lucky for me, I'm very hard on myself. Yeah. So I never think that I'm good enough, which keeps me humble.
Yeah.
But you have to either learn to say no once you get to a certain level where you're serviceable and you're busy, or you just keep being everyone's everyone, and you'll be unhappy eventually.
You'll be manipulated. You'll be easily manipulated. Look, no is one of those things that it's like, it's tricky because it could screw you up ultimately.
Saying no?
Yeah, say no. But like understanding that, like, I always go back to this analogy, right? Why don't I own a dog? I love dogs. I think dogs are adorable, right? I want a dog. I'm single. I would love a dog, right? But why don't I have a dog? I don't have a dog because I know that I can't give a dog the best life it can possibly have. Knowing my lifestyle, knowing how I work, there's no way that I can come home every day, walk it, and take care of it. It's irresponsible for me to take on a dog. So it's the same analogy if you compare it directly to gigs.
Yes.
If there's a gig that I know I cannot give my 100% to, I'm essentially doing a favor to the client by saying no, because I'm not the right one for it. I can't give you 100%. Go find somebody who can. If that's what you want, go find somebody who can. So it's better for me to say no. Yes, you might be disappointed, Danny. We really want you. But listen, for me, it's not healthy for me because maybe perhaps I don't want to do it. But for you, if I don't want to do it, I'm not giving you 100%. This is a really bad situation to start off in, and I think it's important. That's why no is more than just pride and ego, right? And ignorance. It's not. It can't be. If it's that, then you got a problem. Then no is not healthy for you, right? But if it's the true understanding that you are servicing somebody, you're not able to service somebody at 100%, and you're not able to solve their problems, and you're just taking their money, then I think that's when no is effective.
Also, when like where I got to a point, and I'm at that point, and again, I'm super grateful. Like I can't complain that much. But it gets to the point where you just evolved beyond that job. You can still service it, and even if you don't give 100%, they're still gonna be really happy,
right?
Because your level.
Maybe they don't need your 100%.
Exactly,
right?
But that's where it affects you now.
Yeah,
because you're not giving 100%, and you're like, why am I doing this? Like I can do it. I've done it for years, but it doesn't feed me anymore. And let alone the money. Like if the money is really, really good, then you really can't complain.
Obviously.
But if the money is like the old rates and stuff like that, it's like then I'm double not proud of myself. I'm unproud squared. It's like I'm doing this because I don't really want to.
You're feeding a bad habit.
Yeah, because you're never gonna be, and even if the job is, because you're not gonna do a shitty job because you're not that. I'm not that type of person. I'm gonna do a serviceable job because that's who I am. I'm not gonna produce something crappy.
Yeah.
If I decide to say yes to something.
Yeah.
But I think it doesn't. You reach a point where you just can't do it. You just actually can't. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, time is so valuable, and I think when you get to the higher echelon of things and you want to achieve bigger things, you start to realize that you don't have that much time, and that time that you have almost feels like it's not enough. Next, my whole day just went by. What the hell did I do? But you've been working the whole day, right? And sometimes that's just how it is. And when you get to that, you start to be more valuable with your time, and you also start to realize how much actually energy it takes to work on yourself, that like by the time you go home, you almost don't even want to, you know what I mean? Like you're tired. It's almost like working out, right? Like when you go and you exhaust yourself in a workout, you really work on yourself, and you go home, you just want to go to bed. You're probably dead tired, right? You don't want to do anything else. But if you're sitting around all day, you can sit around all day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and do nothing all day if you like, right? So working on yourself and like getting to the higher echelon of things and evolving as a freelancer, eventually you start to realize how much energy, time, and effort that actually takes, and how valuable, even more valuable, the time for yourself matters, because you have to recuperate. You have to realize how much brain energy goes into everything. Like setting up this podcast and having this whole thing even launched, having the website and having our company launch is a lot more, energetic than we thought it would be. Like it would take a lot more energy and a lot more effort than we initially probably even imagined this would be. We thought it would be simple. Like I thought this would be simple. You stick a couple of mics, you hit record. How hard is it, right? Like I do these interviews all the time.
Yeah.
So like just as to do it, and then you start to realize, holy crap, the amount of energy and effort, because you actually care for it, right? It takes energy to care. It takes energy to love, and I think you only have so much of it.
Yeah.
And I've always said, like I said it to you the other day, like if you have like a pool of energy and a pool of love that you can distribute to the people in your life, into your world, and if you give it to the wrong people, it's going to taint that pool. You know what I mean? And you're going to run out of mana, as I call it, for all the gamers who understand what mana is, energy, right?
It's like the empty cup analogy. Like, listen, if you're pouring from an empty cup, some people are gonna be fucking thirsty, and and you don't want people to be thirsty.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. Is just, I mean, again, you got to make money, you have to pay bills, all that stuff.
Absolutely, you have to balance that stuff.
And obviously, but now it's reached a point where you can do, like, it's not one or the other. Like I'm realizing I don't have to live this kind of nonstop life of work to pay bills and to like do all that stuff. I can have a life. I can make time for family and personal things, because that's part of existing. 25 years old, after all. Yeah. I don't go out. I don't do anything. Mm-hmm. But now I know how much capacity I have, and I have to divide up who gets what gets what, because this is all I got.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go all out on this.
Yeah.
Everything outside of it is literally like just more baggage to carry.
Yeah.
And it's doable. Like I'll I'll be strong
Only
enough
to a certain extent.
Yeah, and next thing you know, you drop something and it's done. So
yeah, exactly.
now there's a freedom in being like, okay, I only have this much. How can I fill it?
Yeah,
You know.
and everyone only has so much. And I think as you go along in life, I guess you start to tone down or really hone down on the things that you really, really want.
Yeah.
You know, and it becomes more and more, I think, because just time flies and you just get more experience with how you deal with certain energy and how you deal with certain things. And I think when you get into this industry, it's the same thing. You start to realize I'm going to start taking out weddings now because I just can't stand them or I can't do them anymore. I'm going to start taking out this. And it's no longer for me. Real estate, I'm not going to do this anymore. It's not for me. And so like you start to, it's the same thing. You have to evolve. I almost feel like at the beginning, you have to go through everything. You have to try everything.
100%.
You have to go and just shoot and create. And then later on, I think it just becomes like it hones back down, you know, and then you're like, okay, I really want to do this. You work on this, but then you're still kind of taking on everything. And then eventually, as you get better at that one thing, which hopefully you do, and if you manage your energy and time properly, you will, you evolve into that. Then you're like, okay, I'm only going to focus on this.
Yeah.
And I think that's usually how the cycle works in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I was listening to a podcast recently, and they were saying, if you know this quote, then you know what's up.
Yeah.
Basically, he was saying, I've never seen one person who gave all their time, all their energy, all their effort, like you would say, 100% all in on something, and completely and utterly fail. You know, it's if you are intentional and you're smart, obviously you can't be delusional with your goal and your business, whatever.
Yeah.
But if you have that focus and you're smart with that, I think it's hand in hand. You can't be focused and blind and stupid.
Right.
I mean, you can be, but I won't be.
Yeah.
You're not gonna be unsuccessful. You might fail at something, but you're not just gonna die and wither away in a hole.
Yeah.
Focus is such a big thing for me
100%.
because when I am focused, I can do what I want.
Yeah.
You know,
You're capable of anything.
Yeah.
And look, where's the win in this industry? The win in the industry is not some accolade. It's not some award. It's the fact that you're still doing it. I'll always live by that. If you are 80 years old and you're still doing you won, right? That means you're doing something right because this industry is very cutthroat. If you suck and you get outdated or you refuse to evolve or you're not good at whatever anymore, you get cut out real fast, right? Like it's very cutthroat, right? In this industry. So I think if you're still doing it, you've already won. You found a way to kind of be within the system.
Yeah.
You know, but it's just like everything when it comes to evolving. Believe it was Bruce Lee who said the quote, you know, when you first learn martial arts, a punch is a punch and a kick is a kick. Yeah. Then you start doing martial arts and you start realizing punch is not just a punch and a kick's not just a kick. But then when you master martial arts, you realize, yeah, a punch is a punch and a kick is a kick.
Yeah, it's full circle.
It's a full circle. And I think that's what happens in this evolution of the freelancer or in this industry, right? You start exploring, you're thinking camera's just a camera and you're just like, whatever, a gimbal's just, let me just go. And then as you're doing it, you realize, oh my God, there's so many factors to go in. And then you start to simplify things again.
Yeah.
Right. And you start to find that thing and you're like, you simplify everything again. So, you know, we're working on getting to that final stage. You know, I'm in that involvement of trying to get to that final stage of like making cinematography a simple, practical thing for me to do in life, even though it's so complicated and so complex, you know. But I went through the stages of like trying to figure out every little thing, understanding codecs, understanding coloring, understanding everything, cameras, lenses, all that kind of stuff, composition, and you're learning all this kind of stuff. And now I'm just trying to find, okay, what do I like? And how do I evolve all the information that I just got to hone into this? And I think for you, it's the same. You're going through the same journey.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, I think I want to end with one more question.
Okay.
For you. So somebody who is currently busting their ass like you were and doesn't even realize they're doing it until they heard this podcast, perhaps. What are some red flags or signs to realize that you are starting to go down the wrong path? Some warning signs.
Some warning signs.
I'm not gonna give you a number because I know it's difficult.
I'll think about it. Yeah,
but like
warning signs. I'll speak for myself because that's all I have.
Yeah.
Are you incredibly proud of the work you're doing? If you're not, you should sit and reflect about why. Number 2, is everyone saying yes to you?
That's a big one.
For jobs.
That's a big one.
Yeah. Book it in. Okay. Just sit back and reflect. Are my rates too low? There's something wrong there for sure.
Yeah.
unless you're getting paid 10 grand a shoot, and then you're making a lot of money, man. I'm proud.
Even then, maybe you should be doing 20. But anyway,
exactly, that's true. Number 3. I mean, this is an easy one. Like, you don't have time for anything else. All you're doing is working. Like,
I see.
Like, little spin off on this. Like, people would like tell me. Sometimes I would sit and think, "Fuck, maybe I'm being lazy right now," or like maybe I'm like, no, I don't do anything. I don't watch TV. I don't go out.
You don't drink coffee.
I don't drink coffee. All I do is work. It's like not like people were like, oh, like you're not spending much time on this. All I do is work. Literally every waking hour of the day is work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't. So if that's you, and you're like you have no other time for anything else,
yeah,
that's a pretty big red flag. I don't know if people are that extreme, but if you are, I'd love to talk to you.
Right.
And another one would be you're not actively learning anymore.
Yes.
You're just kind of stuck in the churn things out kind of thing, or crank things out.
So kind of reflect back on your skill sets from time to time and see where you stand.
Yeah, like when was the last time you like, okay, this is a new lighting technique, or this is a new, I don't know, philosophy of on lighting or composition or whatever, or an aspect of photography or videography, whatever you are doing that you want to explore.
Yeah.
Maybe it's color grading, maybe it's mastering DaVinci.
Right.
When was the last time you sat and like chose to do that and actually did it?
Right.
If you're not doing that, like you probably don't have time for that.
Yeah.
This is granted, the other aspects are checked off. Like you don't have time. Like if you're wasting time doing like other things, like I'll say playing video games, but you can do whatever you want. If you have time for it, cool.
Right.
But if you're just literally on the couch for 10 hours watching TV, then I can't say you're working too much, right?
Right.
So just be mindful of like, are you learning? Are you actively learning? Do you have time for that? Then
be honest with yourself.
Be honest with yourself. That's pretty much the biggest thing. And that was maybe the good thing about me is I'm very very hard on myself. So, but that's also a bad thing too, because then you can't see. You're kind of blind to like what's real.
Everything's good and bad.
Exactly. So
but
any other red flags? I mean, if your friends are telling you like you have no time, like that's probably a pretty big one.
If you notice the relationships around you, that one I can speak for.
Yeah, if they're fucking starting to
you're starting to drift, or you're starting to see like that's a tough one. Relationships are very, very tough to balance. That's a whole other topic.
Or last one on a more comedic note, if you're falling asleep unintentionally every night,
yes,
either editing or if you're waking up with the lights on and you're fully clothed, which was me and still is, honestly.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time I fell asleep on purpose unless it was an early morning shoot.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like,
that's insane.
So there's certain lifestyle things that you should get in check. So, it's a work in progress.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
That's it, I think.
That's
a heavy episode right there.
That's a heavy episode.
The evolution of the freelancer.
Right? We're going the evolution of our freelancer, and hope everyone learned something as we fade into black, into the awkward end that we can never have. Well done.
See ya.
See ya.
Sometimes at restaurants, I say bye to people and
thank you.
They don't even.
And no one says anything. You're like, all right.
Have a good one.
I'll see you next time.
It's like it's not meant to be for me.